Avatar.
Oh man!
Like a lot of people on this planet, I adore Avatar: The Last Airbender with every single fiber of my being. Why do you think a lo-fi hip-hop version of Avatar's Love has been my default outro music since the day I started making videos? It's an absolute masterclass in animation and storytelling with unforgettable characters, secret tunnel and all that jazz. But y'all already know that. Though it is because of this sensational series that I'm a proud owner of 2 Kalimbas. Anyway, you would not understand how unbelievably ecstatic I was in 2020 when the great Avatar resurgence began and I saw all my friends and the internet fall back in love with the series. I had jumped on the hype train 2 years earlier in 2018, back when all the episodes were available to watch for free on nick.com, which meant I was there when everything changed, when the live action series announcement attacked. POV, September 18th, 2018. It's a sunny morning in Southern California. You're a sophomore in high school, you're rewatching Avatar for the first time in years, in the middle of book 2 to be exact, and you and your friend Maxine are hanging out at their locker during nutrition. You're scrolling on your phone on Twitter when you stumble upon a tweet discussing a Deadline article. Avatar: The Last Airbender live action series in the works at Netflix. You're shocked. You tell Maxine, "Whoa, Maxine, look at this." But because they still have never seen the show, they're just kind of whatever about it. And because your sweet innocent soul has yet to turn pessimistic about the constant barrage of live-action remakes, you're actually excited. So much so that you turn the concept art into your wallpaper for your crusty dusty iPhone SE. This crusty dusty iPhone SE. Oh, and this actually is a picture of Maxine's locker. See, Maxine? I told you these pictures were for a video someday. I've had these words planned all these years. But as the years pass, more information begins to reveal itself. What was originally a potentially decent remake started becoming more doubtful as the original creators, Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, left the project due to creative differences, as well as the original composer, Jeremy Zuckerman, which I feel like a lot of people tend to forget. When the cast was finally revealed, there were some that I was genuinely looking forward to. We got not 1, not 2, but 3 Lost alumni, which I know Billiam is quite proud of. It would have been 4 had Terry O'Quinn not been replaced with a supposed more accurately aged bald actor. Whatever. With Daniel Day Kim returning to the Avatar universe for a 3rd time, as well as Randall Kim, Master freaking Oogway, returning for a 2nd time after... Not to mention George Takei, also returning. Cool. This was 2021, and at this point I've already grown sick of live-action adaptations, and with Avatar Studios promising new animated Avatar stuff, my interest for the Netflix series was crushed, like the cart of a poor cabbage merchant. But at least I'll be able to see Daniel Day Kim as Far Lord Ozai. Despite all that, I didn't want to go into this series ready to hate it, but instead with an open mind. Well, it's out now, so what do I think? Well, okay, I'll admit there are a handful of things. The mini Lost reunion really is great. It made my little Losty heart happy.
So you fought in the Korean War?
There's no such thing.
And Jin is still hot as ever, baby. He certainly looks the part, and if I were the casting director, I definitely would have chosen him. Also, I like that the show didn't bother with keeping his face hidden, because for an animated character, of course you're not going to know what they're going to look like. But if the series wasted their time trying to hide Daniel Day Kim's beautiful face, then you could just look up the actor online while the credits are rolling. Kim Leung is Commander/Admiral Zhao, and I thought he really nailed the hubris of the character. He got the biggest laugh out of me when he's making sure the transcriber is making accurate notes and Aang makes a fool out of him.
What are you doing? Don't write that down.
I'll go as far to say he might be my favorite character of the show. And I'm aware I'm saying that of Zhao of all people. That's also because they didn't do a super great job with the other characters, but again, I'll get to that later. People call him one note, which, yeah, I kind of agree with. I'm not saying he has a Zool level complexity or villainy, but I mean, come on, he's so fun to watch on screen. I just like his screen presence. But I could be saying all this simply because my lost brain makes me go, OMG, it's Miles, so who knows.
You speak Korean, Red?
Obviously.
But also seeing him reunite with Dad Pierre Chang was pretty neat, I'm not gonna lie. R.I.P. whatever your title was, Zhao. You flew too close to the moon. Or it could be in the Fog of Lost Souls or something, I don't know. I like that they got rid of the melodrama between Sokka and Yue. I do love the original Siege of the... Siege? What?
Siege.
I do love the original Siege of the North episodes, but one gripe I've always had with it is that Yue wants to be with Sokka, but she can't because she's getting married, and it's like, ugh, can't these two lovebirds just be happy before she returns to the moon? Well, this Yue was engaged before she called it off, so I guess that's good. You go, girl. Seeing a little bit more of the Yuyan archers was also cool. I've always found them quite fascinating, but they only have so much time in the animated series since they got bigger things to worry about. Speaking of the archers, Azula's one now. Yeah, she's a bender, but the fact that archery is all about precision, and since she's such a perfectionist, I think her choosing to have an additional weapon of choice makes sense for her character. Hopefully the future seasons make use of this and don't forget about it.
He's done the impossible. He's done nothing.
And yeah, hearing the leitmotifs was cool. You just know I went wham, 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 wham every time they played it. And as much as I was baffled by seeing the hippies, I would be lying if I said I didn't indulge at least a little. Secret, 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 ta-da! Leaves from the Vine was also a nice surprise. There's this honestly pretty great scene of Iroh and Zuko at Luten's funeral where Zuko stays by Iroh's side and explains why they did vice versa after Zuko's banishment. On the topic of new scenes I like, we begin to see Aang and Zuko form a hint of a bond where Zuko is too injured to capture him, but Aang is too kind-hearted to abandon him. It expands upon the already great scene from the original where Aang asked Zuko if they could have been friends during Aang's time by drawing a parallel between the two of them. They're so young and yet they have these great expectations set upon them, but they have doubts of being able to follow through with it. It's interesting. And then we eventually find out that the crew Zuko is ordering around ends up being the soldiers that were going to be used as bait at the war meeting Zuko spoke up against, which is the reason why all of them are searching for the Avatar in the first place, which is cool. However, that also leads to my problems. A lot. Quite a lot. So let's start back, all the way back to the first episode, in which Aang is waltzing around the air temple he used to live at for 20 or however many minutes. I mean, it's whatever, but I feel like I'm missing something. Oh yeah, it's the days people get genocided. Isn't there some saying that what we don't see is often more terrifying when we imagine it? Like how for most of season 1 of Stranger Things we don't get a good look at the Demogorgon, so it lets our imaginations run wild? Not to compare the peaceful air nomads to an unholy abomination, but you see where I'm coming from, right? It's the mystery, it's what keeps things interesting. I don't think it was necessary to show them getting killed in the animated series because 1, it's a Nick show, and 2, seeing the aftermath and Aang's reaction still managed to be incredibly effective. Getting the confirmation at the same time as our main character makes you immediately relate to him since you can understand what he's going through. Also, the Nick series shows us how good friends Aang and Gyatso are, while the Netflix one just has them stand around and tell us. This is very epic. What a great decision.
Leave my friends? Leave home? Leave you?
I've also noticed just how many times a character will point out that someone's hurt. Yeah, it shows they care about them, but they could have made it more subtexty and asked if they were alright or something instead. There are just so many instances like this, with the dialogue being so overt without a hint of subtlety.
Those guys out there. Our nation. I just realized Zuko and I, we both have a lot on our shoulders.
Love is brightest in the dark. You have to let it get dark so you can follow the light. That's how you find the path.
Yeah, thanks for spelling it out. Steve Boy 7 counterpart didn't talk down to its audience like this. Now, with just about every aspect I said I liked, it comes with a catch, so let's get back to that. First of all, the Fire Lord. A lot of his screen time is just kind of him standing around and talking. Like, okay? This is how you're going to establish your big bad? Because of how little we saw of Ozai in the animated series, it lets his presence be continually built up, all the way to Sozin's Comet, where you see him single-handedly light an entire forest on fire, and you're like, whoa! And with how much the Netflix series just loves showing us Ozai, is there anything that's going to blow us away like that during the finale? And though I do like the twist of Zuko's crew originally going to be battle bait, it doesn't help Zuko's character growth. In the episode The Storm, Zuko is disregarding his crewmates, not caring about their lives even with the possibility of a storm brewing. The crew, rightfully so, is like, bro, what gives? He's such a spoiled brat. It's then when Iroh explains his banishment, and that's when they understand why Zuko is so determined to capture the Avatar. When the storm hits and almost loses one of his men, Zuko learns the value of his ship's crew, and the two parties earn a newfound perspective for one another. In the Netflix series, however, Zuko gets exactly what he wants. He demands that Commander G and his crew show him respect, and the crew, rightfully so, is like, bro, what gives? Except this time it's not until all the way near the end of the episode where Iroh tells them about the banishment, 41st Division thing, and blah blah blah. The show never gives Zuko that scene where he learns that the ship's crew is valuable. When he gets back from his Blue Spirit shenanigans, they're there to bow to him, and it's supposed to be super emotional and stuff, but he doesn't even apologize to Commander G. Even then we wouldn't know how he learned he was in the wrong unless it was off screen. And then in the flashback where Ozai orders Zuko to bring that division with him as his crew, it cuts back to Commander G being like, wait, We're that division. Like, thanks man, I got that. And this is supposed to be the adult version of this series? Oh yeah, and Ko. The only thing I like about this iteration is that he's voiced by George Takei.
Someone who can resist? That can't be possible.
I can take the different faces more seriously in animation than live action. What is this? What is this? Even though he barely has 5 minutes of screen time, what I think makes Ko a standout character in the series is that you can't show any emotion to him or else he'll steal your face. When Aang meets him, it's only a few minutes, but there's such high stakes and that no motion thing makes the world of Avatar all the more fascinating. In the Netflix show, they just removed that entirely. They tie him to the Fog of Lost Souls from The Legend of Korra, but because they stripped him of his unique advantage, it makes him a generic he'll-eat-you obstacle that Aang has to overcome. It's kind of pathetic that he most definitely shows fear when Ko starts chasing him, and yet his animated counterpart did
Show no fear.
not. Can I just point out the fact that this episode is called Spirited Away? What would Miyazaki-san say about this? Now, I know people have talked to death about the fact that they removed Sokka's sexism from the series, which, yeah, I'm upset about too. First of all, sexism is bad. But Sokka was sexist on purpose to eventually learn that his way of thinking is wrong. That's what you call character growth. Something that this Netflix series doesn't have a good grasp on. Just because there's a flawed character, that doesn't mean the writer's condoning their actions or ideology. If that was the case, that would mean every horror director and writer out there is pro-murder. I could go really deep into it, but Jesse Gender's video discusses it really well, so just pretend that the points made there are in this video. But I will say that yeah, it is really weird how the show turned Best Girl Suki, a downright awesome female character who's great female representation, into a vessel used for the sole purpose of propelling Sokka's fighting improvement arc, whatever it was. And they forgot about the I'm a warrior but I'm a girl too nuance about her and made her suddenly start falling for Sokka because she's being all voyeuristic while he's cleaning himself, and it's like, huh? She's also way too stoic and boring, and look how they massacred my girl. Like what Jesse said, the showrunners removed what they thought would upset the audience, this means Sokka's sexism, but instead inadvertently inserted it into not just one of the best female characters, but one of the best characters period in the show. They turned a strong female character into a strong female character. Something else I want to add is that if the writers simply wanted to replace Sokka's respect women arc with his insecurity and being a warrior in their rendition of the story, then fine. Even if I thought that new angle they went for was weak and had the potential to be a lot stronger. But them looking at this very progressive plot point in the original series with a surface level perspective by taking quotes out of context and believing that by removing it they're the progressive ones is what I have an issue with. Basically, I just wanted to clarify that I'm not advocating for Sokka to be sexist, but the route the writers and showrunners took should have been executed in a satisfying way that actually justified it. I do realize I'm eating my own words by talking about Sokka's lack of sexism to death, but Avatar's female representation is one of my favorite aspects of the series and something I'm passionate about, so if I'm gonna yap about it, I'm gonna yap about it. And yes, this does give me an excuse to show off my Kyoshi warrior jacket since I couldn't wear it in front of a green screen. Thank you so much for noticing. While I do like the concept of Suki suddenly appearing behind Sokka throughout the episode, the execution of it is just so awkward. Ian Owsley is trying his best making jokes about putting a bell on her, and maybe it's the delivery or the direction or the timing or something, but it makes me think that Jack DeSena would have been able to pull off something infinitely funnier. We talked about 2 members of the gang, so let's talk about 2 more. Aang. Mr. Arrow Boy himself. Like Suki, he's also stoic. Not to bring up another YouTuber that's better than me, but to bring up another YouTuber that's better than me, Drew Gooden really hit the nail on the head by saying that Book 1 of live action Aang is the equivalent of Book 3 animated Aang. When he's talking to Zuko, they do make a point that he has this huge responsibility of being the Avatar on his shoulders, but by the end of episode 1, the dude was already pretty dead set on learning waterbending. Which he doesn't even damn do. They focus on Katara defeating the patriarchy, but then they add in this last minute line at the end of episode 8 being like, oh yeah, you can train Aang now. Which yes was in the original, but that was because Aang already got a little experience in an earlier episode, so he already knew at least the basics. The single exchange from the animated series gives Aang more nuance than what all 8 or whatever episodes did.
Why didn't you tell us you were the Avatar?
Because I never wanted to be.
And speaking of Katara, she's about as interesting as the unfried dough from Avatar Day. Limp and bland. She doesn't have any of her fiery personality where we don't get anything remotely close to her demanding a duel with Pakku if he's man enough to fight her. They do start fighting eventually, but Aang disapproves of this? I have another issue with this series, but it deserves its own chapter. When I refer to the show as weightless, I have 2 meanings for it. The first one is how characters interact with their surroundings. You can tell a lot of the scenes are shot on sound stages, in front of volumes and green screens. Shut up. There's a number of scenes where the gang is flying on up and their hair and clothes are barely moving. Everything is just a little too still, and you can tell when they didn't film on location because the backgrounds are just ever so slightly fake, and it's just ugh. Even the scenes of Aang talking to the past avatars especially are rough. Makes me think back to the animated series and how well they captured it there, especially because they were so inspired by Studio Ghibli, and Miyazaki really has an eye for that accurate clothing physics in his films. Well, at least the costume design looks amazing. It feels made by a cosplayer. It really looks like they were delivered to the actors a night before a convention and they haven't been properly worn in yet. I know I'm talking about costume design when I say this, but they really do look like costumes, not clothing that could realistically be worn. Another thing is characters and environments seamlessly blending together was never an issue to begin with since they were both created with the same medium. Adapting the story in live action in the first place was always going to be a challenge because you have to convince me that these live action actors are actually standing in the middle of these computer generated backdrops. The fire, lightning, air, and water bending all look alright, but it's the earth bending that doesn't hold much literal weight in live action. The directors don't make the actors feel like they're holding a boulder inches above Iroh's head or trying not to crush Sokka and Katara, which I guess it's understandable. It is kind of hard trying to convey weight when you're not really holding anything, but come on. You can tell they were told to just put their hands above their head or move them around and stuff. The biggest issue I have with this weightlessness is its narrative, which I think is more important than just lackluster visuals. As of right now, we don't know when Aang's going to defeat the Fire Lord. The next show, of course, had Sozin's Comet come at the end of summer. Netflix show, though? It's coming eventually. I've seen people get hung up on the fact that the comet is barely mentioned in the series, which, yeah, I also take issue with, and I will explain in a minute. But I can understand why they're lengthening the deadline for when Aang needs to defeat the Fire Lord. We've seen this with the Stranger Things kids and the entire Netflix production model with how they have 2 to 3 years in between filming for each season, which results in the child actors aging faster than their characters. Why do you think they're finally implementing a major time skip for season 5? Compare that to network television from the days of old, where it was only a couple months in between filming and the creators didn't have to worry about Walt not looking 10 years old anymore until season 3. Basically what I'm trying to say is that it'd be ridiculous for the live action Avatar to take place in the span of a year and have Aang age from a 112 to 120-ish-year-old guy. But with that being said, couldn't they just have at least some estimate for when Sozin's Comet will arrive? Since the Fire Nation is the only one that knows about it, that gives them a massive advantage. It could be 10 years from now, and that'd be 10 more years of them just terrorizing the world. With the series having no set time to which the endgame will take place, Aang can take his damn sweet time learning the elements, which means there's no tension for him and then by extension the audience. Hello? Speaking of no tension, let's talk about Sokka and Katara in the spirit world, shall we? They're gone for almost an entire episode, as well as being apart from each other and Aang for more than that. Most of the runtimes instead focused on Aang talking to Gyatso, who's already dead, so what's the point in making their bond stronger than Sokka and Katara's? Whatever. Then having to go all the way to that Fire Nation temple to talk to Roku, then get kidnapped by June, and then Zuko and Iroh, and then Zhao, and then Zuko again as the blue spirit, to the point that you forget all about Sokka and Katara and you lose all urgency at the fact that they could die at the hands of Ko. The writers themselves seemed to have forgotten about that fact and just said, oh, let's have Aang give Ko a reference to the comics. They're fine now. With the series trying to blend so many episode plot lines together, they just end up being muddled and boring. But we've seen worse, right? Guys, I did something no human being should ever willingly do. I rewatched The Last Airbender for this video. I'll try not to restate the flaws people have pointed out for too long since the internet has already lambasted it to oblivion. Breaking news! The dialogue is terrible. Casting white actors as the good guys but Southeast Asian, Middle Eastern actors as the bad guys in a post 9/11 world is awful. The pacing is atrocious. I rewatched it because I wanted to compare it to the Netflix show and see how the movie executed their way of things, for surprisingly better or for worse. In retrospect, it's kind of hilarious just how confident Shyamalan was in getting sequels. Even though the Netflix series had the audacity to bring in Book 2 characters, at least they didn't name drop Hama from Book 3 before they even explained what an avatar was. And there's that one scene of Zhao and Ozai where it's shot like they're trying to conceal Ozai's face, even though we saw it earlier, and it just makes me think, dude, pick a lane. Anyway, if you put a gun to my head and said I have to give the movie credit where credit is due, Aang's tattoos are pretty neat. They look cool when they light up and look like they're actually tattooed onto him instead of being painted or whatever they did. I also like that both variations are textured, which is something that would be a pain to draw frame by frame in 2D animation. And at least with the series, they made Aang's outfit more accurate instead of this bland beige mess. 2, the movie The movie removed 2. The movie removed Paku's sexism and the Sokka Yue melodrama. Yeah, Paku was exceedingly boring with the stilted dialogue, but at least he gave us scenes of Katara and Aang practicing waterbending, and Sokka and Yue have a great time spending these weeks together. I know that because Yue spelled that out for the audience.
I've loved spending these weeks with you, Sokka.
For the Netflix series, I was personally hoping they'd get rid of both. Since Paku plays a small role in the grand scheme of the series, his traditional worldview on women didn't need to be challenged, unlike a main character like Sokka, which is why I would have been fine if they removed it. But no, we have to watch Katara and Paku awkwardly fight, even though Aang is still yet to do any waterbending. At least Aang did something slightly resembling it. 3, I personally really like the color of Yue's hair changing and her white hair, her life being exchanged back to the fish. It's a neat visual, and it's more interesting than having Yue simply disappear or having her collapse then disappear, and they actually dyed her hair instead of just slapping a wig on her head. Part of me kind of wishes the series showed Yue in her moon spirit form and she had one last moment with Sokka, but they're probably saving that for future seasons. Or maybe they're just going to keep her as a fox. And we'll get to the fox. 4, on the topic of Yue, I also vibe with the costume and that it looks less cosplay-y than the Netflix series. In general, the movie gave us the voice of Asami Sato, so at least the franchise was able to give Seychelles Gabriel a better role. In terms of performance specifically, Amber Midthunder is a better Yue. Not just because she's more accurately casted, but because she has a bit of a better script, so she has actual decent chemistry with Sokka. Though I like Gabriel's Yue aesthetically, Midthunder's is overall the best live action iteration since she's written a bit better. But at the end of the day, even with the melodrama, animated Yue is still my favorite. 5. The effects truly were decent in the movie, mainly because they were done by ILM, so it's no wonder. And they actually shot on location in Greenland for the Southern Water Tribe scene, so it looks more legit than whatever this was. 6. It's mainly because the runtime allowed this, but Dallas Liu's Zuko was slightly better than Dev Patel's. I'll admit he's decent, but the Netflix version wasn't quiet and reserved like he was, so the scene of him speaking up at the war meeting makes more sense. Regardless of how I think about Shyamalan and Zuko, both interpretations are on the spectrum of being the better characters of their respective adaptations. But the most important thing is that Dev Patel is off doing bigger and better things, and I'm happy for him. It's a little funny how obsessed the movie was in letting you know the Great Library exists, with Mr. Aziz constantly reminding you about its existence.
As you know, I conducted a raid on the Great Library, which most said didn't even exist.
Get on with it.
In my raid of the Great Library earlier this year, this is a scroll from the Great Library.
The Fire Nation has stolen knowledge of us from the Great Library.
While the series goes out of its way to avoid name dropping, yet has no issues taking elements from it, a one-minute cameo from Wanji Oogway? Sure, why not? A last-minute scene of the Great Sage telling Ozai about the comet with the eclipse thing? Yeah, sure, okay. Another thing I don't believe any live-action adaptation is gonna get right is the color-changing sequences from the Siege of the North, which I think is a very underrated aspect when we're talking about that finale. In the animated series, it looks amazing. Like, they painted those frames red or black and white, but with splashes of blue and orange. But in the movie and the Netflix series, they just moseyed on over to Premiere Pro and color-corrected it to red. There's a difference between something being lit or color-corrected red and something being actually red. But now in terms of the series executing things better than the movie, Netflix pulled it off better. At least the series actually remembered about the black and white, and seeing it contrasted with the bioluminescent water and fireballs looks pretty neat. But again, since you're dealing with less shadows and textures in 2D animation, it looks infinitely better. Though they're not voiced by D. Bradley Baker this time, Appa and Momo are better designed. Every time they showed Momo, I was like, damn it, he's adorable. And Appa doesn't have that cursed flat face that makes me go, oh, what is that? They also made Zuko's scar more convincing, which really just means it was more noticeable. They pronounced names like Aang and Sokka and words like Avatar and Agni Kai correctly.
Prince Zuko was sentenced to an Agni Ki duel.
What is Agni Ki? Stop it. They even accurately casted actors for the characters who are people of color, for the most part. Something else I forgot to mention is that it's actually nice to see a live-action Avatar adaptation actually adapt the music from the animated series. Since Jeremy Zuckerman left the project, Takashi Furukawa did a really nice job bringing back the leitmotifs and themes that we already know from the series, and I think it blends pretty well with the original music that he composed for the series. The track Lieutenant's Funeral really is amazing. It's the one that brings back Leaves from the Vine, and I don't know if it's because of the Lost alumni in the show, but something about the strings in that song seriously sounds like it's from Lost. So me comparing something to Michael Giacchino's work is seriously high praise. James Newton Howard scored the movie, and he is a good composer. He wasn't able to use any of the Avatar music. I don't know if it was because of a personal choice, because of Shyamalan, or the copyright thing. It's a long story, but it's basically the reason why we only now have Book 1 soundtrack, which came out last year. Even though it doesn't use any Avatar leitmotifs or themes or whatever, it doesn't even sound Avatar at all. You don't hear any Eastern influence, not even the freaking kalimba, which I think is a crime, but whatever. Yeah, it's just something else I wanted to mention, how the movie, yet again, failed spectacularly, even though, again, it's a decent soundtrack by itself. Ugh. In other words, they did the bare minimum. Here's some other things I thought were stupid I just want to rattle off. Suki gives Sokka her fan as something to remember her by, which is cute. Except he doesn't do anything with it. Hakoda entrusts Sokka with protecting the village, and think about that as that he's the oldest male villager. So who's this guy who's hanging around in episode 1? He doesn't do a damn thing. Continuing on about Ozai, they also show a lot more of Azula, and Mei, and Ty Lee. You ever have those characters where you just can't get enough of them? You adore every second they're on screen, and even though they already have a decent amount of screen time, you wish they had more? Yeah, that's me with Azula. A Netflix series taught me that I should be careful for what I wish for. What sounds like a cool idea on paper is made uninteresting by the way they execute it. The series feels the need to cut away from the gang, only to have scenes of Azula occasionally firebending or at an archery range just talking to Mei and Ty Lee. Was it really that necessary to show them this early? I also love the two of them in the animated series, but I can't remember anything they did. They just stand there. I felt like the writers were creating dialogue for one of them, but realized they wanted both, so they just split the dialogue King Solomon style, because I can't tell their personalities apart. In fact, the entire show feels like they needed to cram in as many characters as they could for the sake of fan service in case they don't get renewed. Ozai, Azula, Mei, Ty Lee, the secret tunnel hippies, Wan Shi Tong, when all of that could have been spent on strengthening the bond between the gang. Aang proclaims that his friends mean everything to him, but by the end of book 1 I feel like they barely know each other, especially because they spent almost the entirety of 2 episodes apart. That's a quarter of the season's screen time you lost. With the Agni Kai scene, they do things differently. As Drew Gooden mentioned, they have Zuko actually fight and have him almost beat Ozai but choose not to, which makes Aang more likely to defeat Ozai, whatever. But they also change Azula's reaction to her seeing Zuko get burned. In the original series, she's not even established a name role yet, so her making that yeah, kill him face makes her all the more interesting. But this time they show a flicker of a tear in her eye. And I didn't mention it earlier because I don't really know how to feel about it. They do change Zuko and Azula's dynamic with Ozai by having him pit the two against each other, and though animated Azula has a balance of being ruthless and sympathetic, but mostly ruthless, I think live action Azula is going to be more sympathetic. At first I wasn't on board, but now I think I'm okay with it. I don't want to hate a change solely because it's a change from what I'm used to, but now I'm slightly interested in the route they're going to take with this. Azula is my favorite character from the Nick series, so I guess I'm open to the idea of doing something different. I don't have high hopes, but also please don't screw it up. Another thing I don't think is actually stupid and further ruins the show, but more so stupid in a way that I could point and giggle at, and that's Zuko's journal. He uses it to gather information about past avatars, which Aang doesn't know already, and is why he steals it at one point. And he apologizes for that in the scene I mentioned earlier that I liked, so good for him. But the fact that Zuko draws in the journal, I don't know, I just think it's funny that such a brooding character is making little doodles. What a silly guy. I just hope Linus doesn't get his hands on it. Something I should probably mention now is that I watched the first 3 episodes with my uncle, and he pointed out in episode 1 that Sozin and the other firebenders fly now. I would be fine with it since Azula does it, even though it's not until book 3, except we don't see the firebenders ever do it again. What's the point of establishing this great advantage if we don't see any other characters from the present day do it? And then if they do fly, why would they need the war balloons? Hello? And they gave Yue a persona? Okay, I'll elaborate. Because the moon spirit gave her life, she is now the bridge between the spirit and human worlds, even though I thought that was the Avatar's job. Well, basically when we first see her, she's a fox and she's talking to Sokka in the spirit world, telling him that pain is bad and the spirit world is dangerous. Tell us something we don't know. Except we're not supposed to know it's her, but then they show the hairpiece on her tail and I think, oh, that's Yue. But then I have to wait 2 episodes for Sokka to come to that realization. This isn't a case of dramatic irony, it's just the series attempting a twist. When Sokka does eventually find out, it culminates in Yue telling Sokka that he has a good heart. Okay, it's another Yue and Sokka scene, but their chemistry was better handled in that earlier scene. Can I wrap this up now? I'm tired. With books 2 and 3 unsurprisingly getting renewed, the series does have a chance of improving itself. No, I don't think it's going to top the original, but also no, I don't want it to fail because come on, look at the cast, they're adorable. I totally want to hang out with them. In fact, this one clip of Ian Owsley made me laugh harder than any of the lines he was given.
My name is Ian Owsley, and I will be playing Gran. No, I'm just kidding. I'm playing Sokka.
That being said, I do believe the acting needs to be improved, but that's also because the actors need much better writing and direction to work with. I don't mean any ill will towards them, I'm more so critical of said writers and directors. The reason why I hate live action adaptations of animated properties is because they try to be the adult version of kiddie movies and shows, when in reality these remakes and reboots contain a fraction of the emotional complexity from the source material. And that animation as a medium is so limitless, so there isn't really a point to adapt something into another medium so restrictive like live action. I hate the fact that the animation is for kids mindset is so ingrained in Western culture. You're not going to get crucified for watching animated stuff as an adult. I mean, Exhibit A. What I'm trying to say is that in a well-ordered universe, these adaptations will be able to expand upon the characters and themes already set by the animated source material. But instead they're rehashing stories and characters we already know and making them look uglier and soulless because we've got to have money. It's not like I want to dislike the show. It's not like I want to spend hours of the precious time I have on this earth feeling numb to the experience. But if the showrunners can't learn from book one's mistakes, then I won't have much hope for the future seasons. Though I suppose the good news amidst all this is that we're getting a new wave of interest for the animated series, and with Bright leaving the Netflix show, that's how we got Avatar Studios. We got their first movie coming up, an animated one with the gang as adults coming out 3 days before my birthday now. That's cool, so at least I have that to look forward to, even though it's delayed. If you excuse me, I'm gonna go ahead and rewatch the animated series for a millionth time now. Not just because the Netflix show made me want to more than anything, but because I'm gonna be... well, you'll see come February of next year. No reason. Okay, bye! Oh, my leg is killing me. Oh, jeez. Oh my gosh.